Almost 66% of civil cases in Indian courts today are relating to land. In this video, we will tell you a list of legal checks and balances which you can do and follow so that your hard-earned money is saved. If you already own land, you can listen to this video and make sure you do a sanity check to ensure that all these processes have been followed. Second, if you're planning to purchase a property, you must follow these measures so that you are protected. This might be a little lengthy video, but we've tried to put all the key points for this important decision in this one video, in one place. So please be patient and watch till the end. So, although I am a legal expert, but we also have Paras, who focuses specifically on these type of laws and disputes to help give you more insights.
People end up buying land that does not exist. People end up buying land that does not belong to the person who's claiming to sell it.
So, the first and the most important check you must do is a title check. What does this mean? It means you need to check whether the property you're intending to buy from the seller actually has the right to sell that property to you. We've also spoken to Alex, who has recently purchased a land in Bangalore.
We knew somebody who was about to build their house. Just as he started construction, a lot of people came to his construction site and started sitting right outside it, preventing the builders from building. So the problem what they were saying was, this property belongs to our grandfather, not to you. How can you construct on this? Turns out that this property at one point did belong to the grandfather of these people who were protesting. But the grandfather had actually given his documents for a personal loan. Okay, this was an unofficial loan that was given and the property was given as security. And this is the guy who sold it to our friend. So he had no right to sell.
So basically, always check whether the seller actually has a right to sell to you. Now, how can you do this? This is done by a simple title check which can be done by any lawyer. Most probably better, a property lawyer. What he'll submit to you is called a title search report or TSR. The lawyer will charge probably a nominal fee of 10 to 15,000 from you for doing this title check. A title check will also help you in verifying the authenticity of the main title deed itself. But remember, you must have a simple agreement with the lawyer too. Even a clause as simple as this can help you go a long way.
Clients need to know that clients have the right to have written agreements with lawyers. A lawyer should never, and this is something they can be taken to court for if they do, should never go to any other party and do something that directly or indirectly hurts their client.
This is also known as fiduciary duty. Now, even though a lawyer will do the title search for you, here is a list of components that the title search report should have. You can pause this video and take a screenshot of this if you want. What you must also do is to appoint a proper land surveyor.
The job of a surveyor is to go to the physical location and figure out what is the existing position of land as on the date of transaction and prepare a sketch so that parties know what land they are actually paying for on ground.
And you can match it to the original title deed and the future sale deeds to make sure that the exact same property has been transferred each time.
You would see that a lot of agricultural land has been converted. So this converted land, sometimes on paper it says that it's converted to maybe commercial property, maybe it's converted to future residential properties, but currently can I build?
Questions like these can be answered by appointing a local surveyor who will check the local regulations.
There have been multiple instances where people, because they've not followed those regulations, have then been sent notices by the local corporation saying the building is irregular. We often hear about demolitions in the news because people have encroached upon either public land or governmental land or other people's land.
So, what you can do in this case is request the local Tehsildar office to send an official surveyor. You can also ask your lawyer to inquire from the local authorities about the exact area in which you'll be allowed to construct on your property. This is called FSI or Floor Space Index. This Floor Space Index is defined by the local town and country planning department. If you're buying land from a developer or in an area which is not fully developed yet, you must have a look at the local development plan. This is to ensure that you know how much or where the roads are going to be built and what their width is going to be.
IRDA has some restrictions on it. You cannot have a gated community of certain population size or certain number of plots without leaving that width of road, drainage, etc. etc. The approach road and all the other documents were furnished to me by the broker who helped me out with a lot of the processes. It was all completely IRDA approved.
The way to check an easement right, which is a right over a landed property, immovable property, is to actually go on ground and ask the people and see what road goes through a property or around a property. So a physical check coupled with possibly a surveyor also and verifying this, and all of that going into the document of sale.
Now, a very critical point to note. You must never, and I repeat, never buy a property on the basis of a general power of attorney or a GPA.
A general power of attorney is a document executed by person A in favor of person B, delegating a broad set of powers and functions and duties to person B.
Even though you must avoid it, in case there's a situation where you must have to buy a property from a person who's holding a GPA from the owner, then you must still make sure that these special clauses are present in the GPA he holds. Few of these special clauses include that the GPA holder can sell the property on the owner's behalf. Second, that he can sign the transfer documents and any other documents on the owner's behalf. And third, that he can do all legal actions that are necessary to ensure that there's legitimate title transfer from the owner to the buyer. Finally, if the owner is not a resident of India or he's not residing in India and the general power of attorney has been signed outside India, you must make sure that the GPA is either apostilled or notarized in the country where the owner is residing. Now, what is an apostle or a notary? It is very similar to a notary process in India which you get done by authorized officials to ensure the authenticity of the document which you have. Another important check which you must do is to make sure that the property does not have any encumbrances. What does this mean? This means that you have to ensure that the property does not have any pending dues or liabilities on it.
It's important to take away from the case of Biswajit Chakravarti versus ICICI Bank that just because you've taken a loan against a property and you clear that loan, that would not necessarily mean that you've cleared all encumbrances on that land.
This is a necessary check because you want to make sure that you have a property without any dues or liabilities. Because in a worst case scenario, the government or the bank or any other institution may foreclose that property or seize it from you. This is a check which the lawyer can also perform while doing the title search, but you must also be aware of this. The next very important check you must do is for mutation.
So the word mutation comes from the fact that making that entry is called mutating, which is to change the nature of the land entry.
Mutation, also known by these names, is a very important process to do. This process has to be done by the buyer once the payment has been made and the sale deed has been executed. Through this process, what you have to do is to make sure that you change the name of the owner in the revenue records of the state where the property is in. This is because it is the owner's liability to pay the relevant property taxes in the state, and his name will be on the tax receipt.
I have seen cases where people have gone into property transactions, especially with vacant land, where they've simply signed a sale deed and have checked the encumbrance certificate and khata. But they never went back to check whether the mutation certificate was actually in the name of the person who claimed to be the actual seller.
You should also know that mutation is a very good title check process as well. You can check the local revenue records for the name of the owner. In case the owner's title is good, the revenue records will have his name. Another important check you must do is the change of land usage approval, or also called a CLU approval. In India, more than 60% of the land is actually agricultural land, and you cannot utilize that land for building a house or any other purpose. So, if you are buying a property for building a house or for any other purpose, you must make sure that that plot of land has a CLU approval and also a NA certificate, which is a non-agricultural certificate. You can ask the seller to show this to you. A PTCL endorsement under the Prevention of Transfer of Certain Lands Act is another important check you must do. You can ask the builder or the seller to get you a PTCL endorsement. Any district tehsildar or a district commissioner can issue this document. This is to make sure that the land which you're buying does not fall under lands which have been granted to persons from the SC or ST communities.
So if someone who does not belong to a scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, even for fair consideration, gets that land under a registered sale deed, by law that transfer would be void, and you may end up in a situation where, despite the fact that you have all the documents necessary for transfer, you are left with neither land nor the money that you have paid.
The next thing you must check are the actual contents of your sale deed. A sale deed is the document through which the actual transfer of ownership of the land actually happens. You must make sure that the sale deed is registered in a sub-registrar's office. This registration must be done within 4 months from the date of the actual sale. If this is not done, then there are penalties which may apply to you and the sale deed will be declared invalid.
And it's important for the buyer to make sure that the signatures that the seller is putting on the sale deed are actually theirs. And the best way to perhaps check that would be to see a copy of the PAN card or the original PAN card where there is an e-signature that's included.
But even after doing all these, there have been certain cases where the buyer has had to face one extremely critical issue.
After this sale is done, 2 years later, 5 years later, it could be 10 years later, children of children come and say that my grandfather did not have sound mind. You as a secondary buyer or a tertiary buyer, how do you even refute that, fight that? You may have a lot of proof on your hand, and our civil court system is such that there's such a backlog of cases. Even if you're the rightful owner, you have all the documents in place, to get that cleared is about 5 to 6 years time.
Now, this happens because a sale deed is essentially a contract which is governed by the Indian Contract Act. The Act defines these key elements for a valid contract. And point number 2 is what Alex was referring to. So, how can we prevent this from happening?
It is a good idea and advisable to have two people as attesting witnesses to, or rather what's called executing witnesses to the sale deed. If there is any doubt about the fact of whether a person signing the sale deed has the mental faculty at that point to sign it, then a doctor's certificate would add more evidentiary value to the fact that they were in fact in sound mind. So it creates additional evidence for the buyer.
So, as Paras said, you must insist on a certificate of sound mind attested by a medical health professional of the owner to save yourself from long years in court battle. So guys, I know this has been a long video and we've told you a lot, but trust me, stick on. There is one last key point which you must keep in mind before buying a plot of land. This key point is something called the doctrine of caveat emptor.
Caveat emptor means let the buyer beware, and it's important for the buyer to make sure that they do their entire due diligence with a competent lawyer's help to ensure that they have done whatever is necessary to ensure that they are getting clear title over the land that they're buying. What's also important is that all of the due diligence that they've done and the representations that the seller is making should be contained in the sale agreement, that is the agreement to sell, and also in the final sale deed.
If tomorrow any dispute comes on your property, you cannot simply claim ignorance. The court will actually check whether you took any basic due diligence steps to check whether there was any defect in the title or not. If you have not taken some basic steps, then you might actually lose ownership of the property.
The paper publication constitutes a general announcement to the public, including anyone who may potentially have a claim over that property, that hey look, I am buying this property. If you have any claims against the ownership or title, then please come and file those claims with me or intimate me. It's again part of the due diligence process and building proof that then goes into the sale deed, so that tomorrow should someone take you to court, you can tell the court, look, this is what I did.
Doing your own diligence, and especially if you've done the steps which we've mentioned in the video, will offer you one more protection. If after doing all the diligence steps, you still can't make sure that the person who is selling the property to you is a fraud, then if years down the line there comes an original owner who comes and contends that sale to you and disputes the property, then the court will try and protect your right as a buyer, because you would have done all the necessary steps which you could have to ascertain the legal title of the property. Also, if you have taken a small loan or a complete loan for buying the property, it adds as an additional small check because the bank does its own due diligence on the property. Doing all this diligence will work in your favor if it ever goes to court. Now, if you are having a tough time remembering all the information we've given you so far, we've made your job easy. We've created a PDF which is linked in the description below. You can download it, share it with your friends, and use it as you want. So guys, if you like the content of this video, you may also like content of our other video which is linked here.